Okay, so I've got this 3-class project that I've been working on in some of my videos. It's for building a linked list Students GUI. Doesn't matter what it is, okay? But it's a basic GUI. Just think of it as a basic GUI project where there's a data class. So there's a student email class where there's 2 private fields, class fields or instance fields, a name and an ID. And we've got a default constructor, a parameterized constructor, a get name and a get ID, so the accessor methods for getting class data, the mutator methods for changing class data, set name and set ID, and also a toString method. So all the sorts of things you'd have in a typical data class in Java. Okay, so the constructors, the accessors, the mutators, and the toString method. Okay, and you might have a lot more than that, of course, but they're the basic things you should have in all your data classes. Then I've got a custom exception handler here, which you may or may not have. This is sort of more advanced Java, so don't worry about this if this confuses you. And then we've got an email GUI class. So this is the main GUI class, which displays the user interface with some data inputs for ID and name, and a bunch of buttons, and a linked list to store the data in. But it could be anything. It could be an array list we're storing the data in, or anything. It doesn't really matter what it is. Okay, and I've got a constructor here that builds our GUI. Create some panels, add some buttons, and add some GUI inputs and labels to panels, add some buttons to another panel, add some panels to a grid area which has got 2 rows and 1 column, and then we're adding the text area to the center of our user interface and adding the panel to the south. Then we're activating the buttons with linking each button up with a method, so that this method here is called automatically when the add button is clicked. Okay, so I'm just linking it up to a method. And then we've got the methods down here. So is student in a linked list already, and it returns true or false. Add a student adds a student to a linked list. Delete a student deletes a student from a linked list, and so on. So we've got a whole bunch of methods there that the buttons call when they need to do some work, including an exit one rotate. So there's a display all one, there's the exit application one, and so on. And we've got a little tiny main inside our GUI class to create an object of type student email GUI, which is our class name. Set the visible to true, set the size, set the location of the window, and change the default close operation so the application exits on close, not the default operation, which is just to go hidden. Okay, so a very, very basic setup here. Really, we only need the 2 classes, the data class, the student email class, and the GUI class. Okay, they're really the only 2 classes we need. The email exception handler, the custom exception handler, is just really a more advanced topic that you don't need to worry about, really, if that confuses you. So pretend we've got the 2 classes there, and so we're going to take this handcrafted code, and this is code that works in text. I've developed in TextPad, but this code here is 100% standard Java, and it will work in NetBeans, IntelliJ, any other Java editor. It's 100% Java code. Okay, so nothing custom here. It's just all basic standard Java code. So what we're going to do in this video is convert this project to a NetBeans project, and then we're also going to convert it to a NetBeans GUI Builder project. So if that's interesting to you, please stay watching, and we're going to do that next. Okay, so I've just double-clicked on the NetBeans icon there, and run it. And here's our main screen with NetBeans 8.2. So let's go File, New Project. We'll create a Java application. That's what we always did in our courses. There's other ones as well, but Java applications is what we're creating. So just the defaults. Okay, not selecting anything there, just leaving the defaults, Java and Java application. Next, we'll give it a name, and we'll give it a file location. So I want to store mine, this PC, the C drive. We'll get there eventually. I'm doing all my work at the moment in the Java folder, and I'll store it in, I'll create a new folder, and I'll call it NetBeans Linked List. Okay, so I'll create a new folder, and I'll store everything in there. Okay, so it's in NetBeans Linked List, that's a folder. I'll just leave this Java application one. I don't need to worry about naming that something nice. That's fine. I'm happy with that. That's going to be the main class. Everything's good. I'm happy with that. I'll click Finish. Okay, and it's creating the project. Yep. Okay. So it's created a skeleton project for us. And that's all looking pretty good. So what I need to do now is merge my code in here with this project. Okay. Okay, so just changing back to Windows Explorer. So there's the code I was working on yesterday. That's the 3 files. And there's my NetBeans linked list that I just created the project. So what I'm going to do is drag these 3 files into the project source code over here. So expand that out, and go into the source folder and Java application. And I'm going to drag it. I think that's where the main file lives. Yep, there it is. So I'm going to drag these 3 files in there with that. Copy. So now the 4 files there. That's the one NetBeans just created, and the 3 I've been working on. So NetBeans, the IDE should, the NetBeans IDE should recognize those, and there they are. Okay. Now what we want to do is go to the main file. Incorrect package. Okay, so let's get the package statement out of here. So we might need to add the package statement in because NetBeans does like to work on packages. So we'll add the package in. And we probably need to do it here as well. Just add the package in. So the same package for all the files, just add it in. Okay, and then we'll do a save. Control S to save everything. This is still coming up with an error here. No, just saved it and it's gone. Okay, so I said to save and it was gone. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go down the bottom of our GUI class. So student email GUI.java. And we're going to grab this code here out of the main. So we're going to grab that code there and cut it or copy it, whatever you like, because we're not going to use this main anymore. We're going to use the main that's in our Java application 1.file. Okay, so we're going to move the main over to there. So we can copy all the main if you like, or cut and paste it. I want to comment it out because we don't need this one anymore. Okay, and save it again. And I want to copy this code that's inside there. I want to copy that across. So I've highlighted everything that's in the main, which is creating an object based on our GUI class, setting visible, setting size, setting location, and setting a default close operation. So I'm going to go Control C on those. So I commented out all that main now in our GUI class, and I'm basically moving the main across into our Java application file, which is the file TextPad knows about. Sorry, the file NetBeans knows about. A few blank lines and paste the code in. Okay, and there's our code. And that should be it. Oh, it's picking up on the JFrame here. It's picking that up as an error because when we use JFrame, we need to do an import. It's a swing component. Import java x.swing.star should do it. That should be all we need. Yep, that's gone now. Let's fix that error. Okay, so now we should be able to run our project. And I think from memory, it's that green button. Come on, tooltips, you can do it. I think it's the right green button. I'm going to click it anyway. And there it is. So there's our application running in NetBeans. Okay, so it's not hard to do at all. It's just a matter of putting your code in the same directory as the new project you create and wiring up the main so that it loads your project from now on. Okay, so that's tackled part 1 of the question. We've done that. We've got the student email GUI class working in the NetBeans project. That's great. So that's done. Now let's move on to part 2, converting to NetBeans GUI Builder. Okay, so we've got our project working fine in NetBeans now, but you will notice something here. We've only got 2 buttons here, source and history. There's no way to get into the GUI builder. Okay, and the icons over here, this is a JFrame class. If we go up to the top, it extends JFrame, but NetBeans isn't recognizing it as a JFrame class because it's very fussy about the way it wants its code laid out. Okay, and we'll have a look at that shortly. Okay, so when you've got a GUI class existing already, there are ways you can mangle it into getting it to work with NetBeans, but I want to show you a way where we just rebuild the GUI. Okay, that's the easiest way to go, usually when you're dealing with NetBeans, is just rebuild the GUI. Okay, so you need to drag and drop some components and change some names. It's not hard. Let's have a go. Okay, so and there's many ways to do this as well. I'm just going to show you one way. And so I'll go new JFrame form. Okay, and just leave that name, that's fine. I'm happy with that name. Next, new JFrame, I'm happy with that, that's fine. And this is our, now we've got the designer turned on. So when we go back to our GUI class, no designer. When we go back to our JFrame, there's our designer. Okay, so we can drag and drop here. So we want a text area for the top. And we can add panels in and buttons as well. So we can add panels and buttons, or else we just add the components directly. And I'm just going to do that for this example. So we need a label followed by a text field. So that's going to be the student ID. And then we're going to add another label followed by another text field, which is going to be for the name. And you can do all these changes during the properties, but I'm just going to do it here. Edit text, stud ID. Okay. And this one's going to be the ID text field. Edit variable name. It's going to be the ID. Get rid of the J, get rid of the 1. ID text field. Click OK. And then I'm going to change the name as well, just so the name on the screen here when I'm designing is the same as the actual variable name. Just to keep me reminded of what I'm doing. Edit text. This is going to be the name. Uppercase N. And this one's going to be the name text field. So change variable name. Name text field. Don't forget the A, name text field. And you'll notice I'm using the same names as I used in my other project, and there's a reason for that. Change the text as well, just so the name and the text name and the variable name match, just to keep them in line when you're building it. Makes it easier. Let's add some buttons, and I'll just add 2 buttons for now. Okay, but the process is the same for activating the other buttons as well. Okay, so we're going to have 2 buttons. One's going to be the, back to the designer. We're going to change the variable name. This is going to be the add button. Okay, and we're going to change the text to add. So I'm changing the variable names, and this is going to be display all. Okay, and I'm going to change the variable name to display all button to make it the same as our other class. No underscore. Display all button. Okay, so the variable names are set, and the labels that appear on screen are set, and we can add other buttons as well if we like. So let's now activate this add button. Okay, so add, and what we're going to do is come over here and go add, and we're going to add an event, and it's going to be an action event, and we're going to add an action performed. Okay, in other words, we're going to add the code that runs when the user clicks a button. Okay, so that's created a placeholder for us. We're going to come back to that shortly. Let's go back to the designer, and we'll do the same for the display all method. Add, event, action performed. Okay, and there's one for the display. So we've got the add button, action listener handle ready to go, and the display button, action listener ready to go. Okay, so now we need to go across to our other GUI class, the original one, and we need to take all the methods across. So not the constructor, we're leaving the constructor here. We're just taking the methods that we developed. So everything from that method onwards is student in the linked list. So we're taking everything from here on down. All the way down to exit if you like, might as well. Doesn't hurt. Even though we've got methods there we're not using at the moment in the other class, we can still keep them there, doesn't matter. Go across the other class and we'll add them down here. Okay, and it's saying we needed to bring in the JOption pane class. Yep, let's do that. Thank you, NetBeans. Our student text area we're missing. So let's have a look at that. Designer, and this should be called student text area. So change variable name, student text area. Okay, back to the code. Let's fix that error. We're missing a linked list still. Let's bring that across. So our linked list is our instance data. So we need these 2 instance fields in the very top of our class. And we'll copy those across into our new JFrame as well. And I'm just going to put them there. Okay, we need to bring in the linked list. Thank you, NetBeans. We'll do that. Okay, and you'll see this code down here. This is the code that NetBeans generated when we dragged components onto the form. We can't change that. That's how protected it is. NetBeans is very protective of its code. If you want to add code to this class, you've got to do it outside of the protected blocks. Okay, so that's why I had to add that code here. Okay, so we're almost ready to run now. We've got a couple of issues. Let's have a look at those. Scroll up to the top. And there's the issue there. So we're referring to the old GUI class here in our dialog. We're trying to center it in the old GUI class, which we're not using now. So we'll come and grab the new JFrame, that's our class name, and we'll change student email GUI to new JFrame. So our new GUI class name, .this. And do that for each of our dialogues. There's another one, there's another one. We can do a search and replace if we wanted to. There's not many, so I'm just going to go through by hand. There's another one, there's another one. And we don't have any of the buttons anymore, so I'm just going to comment out the deactivating buttons for now. You can activate those later when we have the other buttons. We can't activate and deactivate buttons if we don't have them created yet. Okay, and same down here. Just take those lines of code out. You can activate those again later. Okay, no more errors. Everything's looking good. Control S to save. All our errors are cleared. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay, we're getting very close now. So when the add button is clicked, when the user clicks that one, we want to fire off the add method. And it's that method here. Nope, not delete. The add student method. Okay, so we'll scroll up until we see the action before method for the add button, which is this one. And we'll call add student. Okay, and for the display all, we'll get the display all method. Edit student, edit save student, add test data, display all, there it is. So we'll get that method, and we'll scroll back up to the action performed method for the display all button. And there it is there, display all. Paste that in there and add the semicolon, and we're very nearly ready to go. There's just one more thing we need to do. Do you know what it is? Okay, so in our application start entry point over here, we were creating an instance of our student email GUI. Now we want to create an instance of our new JFrame. Okay, our new JFrame is now our GUI class. Okay, so back over here, and we want to replace that with, I'll leave the old code there so you can see it. App equals new. Okay, so we're literally just taking out the old and putting in the new class name for the GUI class. Everything else stays the same, nothing else changes. We should be able to run now. That should be it. Okay, so let's click the green arrow, and there's our class running. Okay, so we can type in a number, S123 and moose, and click the add, and there it is appearing. Okay, and you notice the inputs get cleared because the old add code's still running, it's still clearing the inputs. Let's add another one, S444, and it's going to be Bella, and click the add, and everything's running nicely. Now I haven't protected my, I haven't done a set editable to false on this yet, so it's still editable. I can delete that code manually, delete those data lines manually, and if I click display all, they should both appear again, and there they are. Okay, so we've converted it. We've converted part of our project across. All we need to do is add a few more buttons and wire them up in exactly the same way, and we're done. So, so changing over from something outside of NetBeans to NetBeans isn't too hard. There are other ways to do it, but in this example here, I just recreated the GUI from scratch and copied across the methods. Okay, and that's the way I sort of like doing it. There are other ways though, but that's the way I like doing it. Now I probably have people screaming at the video saying, Moose, you're an idiot, there's an easier way to do it. I just wanted to show you the easy, straightforward way without going into too much technical stuff. I just took the easy route, which was just to drag and drop and create another GUI quickly, and then copy the methods and the instance data over into here. And so there's the instance data that we copied over, these two lines. And we copied over a bunch of methods, including all of those. And it's just a matter of just wiring up the new buttons to the existing methods that we had. So this class here isn't actually used anymore, so we could actually remove that from the project. So before we go, I just thought I'd compare the original GUI code that was hand-built to the NetBeans generated code, which was NetBeans built. Okay, so that's where I declare all my GUI components. Everything's nice and neat. Here's where I create panels and I add the components to panels, and then I activate the buttons. Okay, and I set the text area to, so I set a button to not enabled, So I built up the user interface by adding components to panels and then adding panels to the user interface. So there's the final adds there to add them to the user interface. Text area goes into the center, and the grid panel goes into the south, and the grid panel's got 2 rows, one for each panel. One for the labels and the GUI components inputs, and one for the buttons. So it's nice and simple. Let's have a look at the NetBeans generated code. So there's the components being initialized, and here we've got all sorts of stuff going on. So there we're setting in the text of the button and adding an action listener to it, setting in the text of a button and adding an action listener to it. Compare that to my code, which was basically that. So we're comparing that really to all this. Okay. Add action listener. Add action listener. Which do you think is simpler? Because there's all this stuff to go, and then down here we've got the action perform method that goes along with it. There it is. So we've got all that plumbing as well that goes along with it for one button. What I did with one line of code here, hooked the button up to the method. It's taken NetBeans many lines of code, and so 1, 2, 3, say three lines of code there, say, plus another 2 down below, 5 lines of code. What I did in one simple line of code. So, and then down here when we're setting the layouts and things, all this is one line of code in NetBeans. We're setting the layout to the get content pane, set layout that's set. Oh, sorry, from there on's one line of code. You look for the semicolons. So that's all one line of code. Just set the spacing for components. Here, I'm just adding them to panels. I've got some flow panels, and I'm adding components to flow panels. And then I've got another flow panel, and I'm adding the buttons to another flow panel. And then I've got a grid layout panel, and I'm adding the flow panels to each row of the grid. Couldn't be simpler. Over here, look at this. This is just the one component. Okay. So, and here's another one. Okay. So we've got massive, horrible, convoluted lines of code that NetBeans generates. And the problem I have with NetBeans is it generates this code, which is horrible, and it puts it in amongst your code. And if you're someone like me who takes real pride in your code, real pride in your work, NetBeans just destroys all that by mangling everything. Okay, so that's my biggest beef with NetBeans, is that it generates such horrible, messy code. It should generate it in another file where I don't have to look at it, where it's not near my beautiful code. Thank you, I take a lot of pride in my code. Anyway, just thought I'd compare the two. So again, you can't beat handwritten code, hand-built user interfaces and handwritten code. You can't beat it. But yeah, NetBeans GUI Builder's there if you want to build quick prototypes. Goodness me, no wonder my students had problems when we introduced NetBeans. They're trying to understand code like this, which would give an experienced Java programmer nightmares. Okay, look at it. What a mess. Okay, anyway, that's enough for NetBeans. Okay. So, hope that was useful. Thanks for watching, and any more questions, just let me know in the comments, and have a nice day. Thank you.